Hello and welcome back to the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. In 2025, having done 99 episodes together, Laz and Felipe embark... No, I'm joking. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome to our 100th episode special, where we're going to take it very easy. Myself and Felipe are kind of celebrating amongst ourselves. 100 episodes, really happy with how we've done, where we are, and all these episodes we've done. And we're just going to basically have a recap of our time doing the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast, talk about our favourite episodes, some of our favourite moments, some discoveries that we made, albums we didn't know were as good as they were until we found them, and just basically reminiscing over the last 99 episodes, really. So with that in mind, introduce you to, as usual, my co-host, Mr. Felipe Amrim. How's it going, man?
Doing great, man. And you?
Good, yeah. Did you like my little fake intro there?
Yeah, that was funny.
Now I start with my written opening. I was like, yeah. I thought, what's Felipe going to think?
No, there's nothing written for today's episode, isn't there?
No, we're just
no
talking,
plan.
Shooting the shit, as they say, and just enjoying ourselves and looking back over. I'm really proud of what we've done, bro. Like 100 episodes is really good. I feel like, when you look at the first sort of 10 episodes, where we went from then to where we are now, I think, unless viewers disagree, unless you all disagree, we'll go back to the old format. But I think all the feedback we've had has been really positive. I just remember, like when we did the first episodes, I was so formulaic. I was like, right, we've got to talk about all the songs one after the other. Okay, done talking about the songs. Now we do the album cover. And it's like, just the way we freed up our episodes more. And you said it as well. You said to me, we shouldn't really necessarily go through song to song. We should just talk about the overarching musical themes, the characteristics. And then that was episodes 20 to 40. And then from 40 onwards, we were like, Laz, actually, I might find a story to tell about each album. And the way it's progressed, man, I just love what we've done, and I really enjoy the content we put out, because I think you have to enjoy it, because we're not paid for it. We do it for free. It's our own. We're an independent podcast, and we support ourselves, and we do everything. All the work you see is not done by a production company. It's all down to myself and Felipe. So, you got to love it, haven't you? You got to love what you do, or it's not worth doing. And I do really love what we do.
Exactly, man. Well said. I love it too, and it's interesting because I think it started in a very like rock and roll way. That's why we didn't have a format like at the beginning, because you gave me the idea. So like we should do this because we were having these conversations in the car, or going from one gig to another. Try to convince each other to listen to a certain album and try to prove why that album was good. And I thought, well, if we're going to do a podcast, we need to do a lot of research. We need to prepare the episodes, and we need to have a structure and all this stuff. Of course, all of that is part of it, but we actually didn't know how the thing would unfold at the beginning. We just started doing, and we recorded some episodes in the car. We recorded episodes in hotel rooms, in any possible way, until we figure out how to do it online properly, and that's the format we've been doing for the last year or last couple of, I don't know how long have we been doing this.
Do you know what? So I looked in the episodes at least since 2021. I remember that's when we did it first, at least. I've got all the earbuds and the stuff. I'm going to get the episodes up so I make sure all of our information is correct in terms of when we did stuff. But those early days, man, doing the do you remember we were just like, oh, can we squeeze an episode in now? What should we do? And we'd be on tour, and we just finished playing. I remember the Creedence Clearwater Revival episode. We just finished a gig, and we
went to the hotel room.
Yeah, and I was like, man, we could get up early tomorrow at 9 a.m. to do the episode like we planned, or should we just go back to the room and do it now? And you're like, yeah, man, let's do it.
Exactly. We also did the Dark Side of the Moon episode in a green room before a gig.
Yes.
Just I remember before a gig, we had like about 40 minutes before the gig started or whatever, and then we recorded it.
That's it. So anyway, our first episode, 16th of August, 2021. So 3.5 years. I know, it's crazy, man. 100 episodes later. And obviously, you've got to remember, we were doing once every 2 weeks at the start, because it was really hard for myself and Felipe to get together when we weren't on tour, because Felipe lives in London. I live up near Warwick. We're about 2 hours away from each other drive. And, you're busy, I'm busy. When we were on tour, it was so easy because we'd be able to be like, oh, should we just do one in the car quickly? And Jack was very understanding, wasn't he? Of like, sorry, we just need to record an episode, So it was nice. But it came from people like Jack, Julia. Shout out to those people who were, gave myself and Felipe work for a good few years as a touring musicians. We'd be sitting in the car, or the tour van. Just, the one that always sticks to mind is when Jack thought we were arguing about Black Sabbath, because I was like, dude, Black Sabbath are arguably, probably the best and most important heavy metal band of all time. And then Felipe turned around and be like, well, I hear what you're saying, but they are hard rock. Felipe, no, they're heavy metal, man.
That was a long argument.
Heavy metal is fast, lads. Heavy metal is fast, and it's loads of solos, and it's fast, and there's screaming. No, Felipe, heavy metal is dark sound. And we just went on, and we had this debate. And it got to the point I was like, Felipe, you can't say it's not heavy metal. Laz, I'm telling you, it's hard rock. And the guy, Jack, was like, guys, like, settle down. And then after we were like, oh bro, no, it's fine. This is just how we talk.
That's our normal conversation.
Yeah, and then even when we were doing the Britpop show with Julia and the guys there, shout out to everyone, Natasha, Niall, rest in peace, he's passed away. All of them, who was there? Adam, Todd, Christy, Tracy, all of those, the Girl from Mars Britpop show. Shout out to all of them. It'd be the same thing. We'd be in the green room chatting about some random album that I just heard, and we'd either debate it or we'd talk about it, and I'd be like, oh, the drums are so good, and you'd respond and you'd say, yeah, but the production, did you listen to the production on the snare? And everyone we've ever toured with has always been like, guys, you should do something to do with music, because like the way you talk is just so good, and the connection you guys have. And I'm really glad we've done it. We took the advice. I think Julia was the first one to suggest it. Jack then was sort of reinforced it through the numerous conversations we had in the car. It was just like, yeah, get on with it. And so we've done it. And it was easy at the start, but not easier, because we saw each other more often. And we did take a while to transition to this Zoom thing, because we liked being in each other's company. We liked being in the same room. And I think it's hard on Zoom, because if I'm in the middle of a point and and my point is lagging a bit internet wise, and you say your point, it's almost like you cut each other off. Whereas if you're in a room together, it's instantaneous. And I know if I'm about to speak, but I see you talk, I'll stop.
It's just like live music versus studio recording.
Yes, brilliantly put. But in that sense, we've learned to accommodate that sort of stuff over Zoom. I know numerous times I might start saying something, but then I can see you're already saying something, so I'll sort of hold back, and vice versa. And it's just gotten better and better, man. And I hope you guys, as the audience, listen and agree, are listening and agreeing with this. Although it's the 100th episode special, I will still do the terms and conditions, because it means more to us now than ever, people. If you are listening to us on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon, please do us a massive favor. We've delivered 100 episodes. I believe they're all pretty consistent in quality and humor and fun. Scroll down, go to our show, give us a good review, write a sentence, just tap the 5 stars, and it means we're going to be seen by more and more people and fly up the algorithms and the charts and everything. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe so that you can stay up to date with our new episodes. We might not always do an album you like. We might not always talk about a band that you like, but I feel like the passion we have for this project, and the passion from guys, I've done albums I don't like. I've come away from doing albums, haven't we? I'm sure you have as well, Felipe. You do very well to hide what you don't like. I normally have to talk to you after and be like, so did you like the album? You're like, not really, because you're pro, but I kind of wear my musical heart on my sleeve. And I think through numerous episodes I've said, didn't really like the album, but here's what is good about it. I've done albums we don't like. But the important thing about this show, and what we're trying to bring, is we're trying to show, in a world full of Taylor Swifts and Lady Gagas, and they're fine. No, nothing against anyone who likes them, but there is what I consider good music hidden in the past, in the present, that people are maybe forgetting about. I'm not talking about Sgt. Pepper. I'm talking about those albums that just go under the radar, all those kind of ones. But yeah, anyway, that was my opening little 5 minutes about what I love about the show and why I love doing it. Anything so?
Well, I would say that I like the fact that the show started on the road, like good old rock and roll, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So I think it's funny for me to think about the whole concept of talking about music, which is something I like doing, with my friends, and doing in a platform like a podcast for me wasn't something I wanted to do initially, because I thought, like, what's the point, right? What's the point about talking about music? I'd rather just listen to music and talk to music to, to my friends. But like, do people need this? Do people need a music podcast? And then it makes me think about when I was really young back in Brazil. That was well when I was young, so that's a few decades ago. Um, I used to get my information about the bands I liked through like magazines. You would have to buy this rock magazine in find a place where because you couldn't find them everywhere. So it wasn't that popular. So you got to if I wanted to know who were the guys playing, in Pink Floyd,
Yeah.
I had to find a magazine and read about it.
Yeah.
And so I started to remember how curious I was about who are the people involved in the album? How did that band start? Like, who were they listening to? And I think when you really, really like music, you start asking yourself a lot of questions about
Yeah.
why that music sound the way it sounds. And I think the probably the main purpose of a podcast about music is to give people those stories, the background, and also to encourage people to go and listen to stuff they probably wouldn't listen to. So again, if you follow the podcast, because we did an episode about the Rolling Stones, but you don't like Britpop, and there's an episode about Oasis, well, have a listen to it. You might be surprised by one of their albums, and
Yeah.
and so we try to kind of cover a little bit of everything in rock music. And one thing that was really good for me is the actual rock and roll, because we did episodes about Little Richard, Elvis, Fats Domino, Jerry Lee Lewis, and I love that kind of music. And it gave me the chance to go back and listen to it. And
it's a different format, isn't it? It's
yeah,
different because we're in a world of when you and me were born. We're in a world of albums. We're not used to what happened in the 40s and 50s where it was singles.
yeah.
So just to go back and experience how it would have been back then in terms of, okay, you've heard one song and now we're judging an artist on that one song. It's just very interesting,
Yeah.
I thought. But yeah.
There's one thing that I thought this morning as well, which is a podcast is an alternative to traditional rock journalism, right? Because it's a different take on um, how to talk or write about music, whatever. So I actually have a quote from your favorite musician, from Frank Zappa. Oh, I I believe it's actually from him, because a lot of quotes are attributed to him, but this one seems to be about from him, really.
Go for it.
So he said, definition of rock journalism: people who can't write doing interviews with people who can't think in order to prepare articles for people who can't read.
So that sounds like Frank Zappa. I'd be very surprised if you read that to me and it wasn't him.
Yeah, so it's exactly. So yeah, so we do. So it's well, just that was just to bring some humor to the conversation. But like, but sometimes we question why writing about music or talking about music, and I think it's the experience you have when you listen to a good album goes way beyond the sounds. Is like all the questioning that comes with it, like how did they make that sound, why is this thing so why does it sound so good to me, so
and how was that sound achieved? Well, bro, you choose. I've got sort of few categories that I just wanted to talk about. I've got my favorite moments, where a sort of a moment in an episode where I went, oh, that's really cool. I've got my favorite episodes, as in episodes that I sort of really enjoyed doing, and then I've got my top 5 discoveries, the albums that I didn't know about that we did that I went, oh my god, that's good. So do you want to save the discoveries until the end?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, let's start with moments then. All right. My first moment was when we did the Dark Side of the Moon episode. And you have to remember I said at the start of the podcast, so episode 5 this was, I was all about, right, got to talk about the music. I'm here to talk about the music, the what's going on musically. So I was going song by song and discussing the music of it. You came to that episode with all the stories about how Roger Waters was going around the studio asking the people who work in the studio random questions. Like, what do you think about dying? And that's where you get I'm not frightened of dying. Anytime will do. I had no idea that happened. And I had no idea, I don't want to decredit myself. I don't want to not give myself enough credit. But I think if I go back 3.5 years to 2021, I think I've matured so much since then in understanding what's behind the music. Because up until then, you have to remember, I was a professional musician, and it was all about learning the song, understanding chords, understanding how the melody fits with this harmony, this, that, and the other. I don't think I ever really dug in behind the music. And so having that moment where you told me those stories about Dark Side of the Moon, I was like, my God, some of those moments in Dark Side of the Moon are some of the best moments where you just get these random little conversation snippets.
Lars, you've got to understand that you're a proper musician, so you play notes and scales and chords. A lot to think about. I'm a drummer. We have a lot of free time, so
Yeah.
we dig into the stories.
Yeah,
And stuff.
excellent stuff. But yeah, that's another one. I mean, do you have any moments, or should I just go through mine and you go through yours?
Yeah, I like the fact that we had to record at any location at any point. Like the hotel room thing, I remember as being
Yeah,
really tired, really knackered,
and that green room
and
thing with
the
Dark
green
Side of the
room.
Moon, because several
Yeah,
people came in, and I
yeah,
remember like turning and being like, "Guys, sorry,
yeah.
we're recording a podcast here."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So one great moment was the interview we did with Steve Rosen about Eddie Van Halen. So that was definitely probably my favorite episode as well. So,
Mm,
but we're going
proud
to talk
moment as
about
well. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, so again, when I say moments, we're so broad. It's just anything that sort of we remember, and I remember two moments. Um, Fleetwood Mac Rumors, episode 34, and
that's on my list.
Alice in Chains Tripod, episode 97. Realizing how much beauty can come from albums of tragedy and hardship for very different reasons. When you listen to Rumors for the first time, there are obviously the lyrics are a bit morbid in that sense, but there are plenty of hopeful, happy musical moments in that song. So although you can go your own way, literally the song is gone, then get lost.
Yeah,
The music's nice. You listen to it
yeah,
in a pop way, and you think, oh, this is nice melody. When you find out what went on behind the album and how at war this band were with each other, yet to still push through the adversity and find and produce something stunning. In the same way, Alice in Chains, Lane Staley dealing with the hardships of a heroin addiction, the band not being able to right with him because he was absent so much of the time. But on both these occasions, for two very different reasons, both associated with tragedy, hardship, and problems, two incredible albums have come out of it. And realizing that when we did Alice in Chains a few episodes ago, that
yeah,
was that
yeah.
was kind of special.
Some of the best music ever produced wasn't done under the most favorable conditions, right?
Yeah, yeah. Good point. Good point. Another one I had, I mean, on us favorite ones, realizing how much has changed in music because it's all good doing the innovative albums of the 70s and 80s, but realizing that actually there are still bands in the 90s and the 2000s doing important stuff. And I don't mean like Nirvana, Nevermind. That's just, it's obviously like a landmark album. I mean the albums we did: Stereophonics, episode 77, Muse,
Yeah,
episode 64, and Audio Slave, episode 26. Modern bands who, with Muse, there was a little bit of innovation there in terms of the
yeah.
electronicness, the ambience, the production techniques. But Stereophonics, how the simplicity of singing about their hometown, an Audio Slave just mixing Rage Against the Machine music with Soundgarden vocals and coming up with this new project.
I like to think about how it started with guys like Fats Domino, and then now we have Muse. Just to
Yeah,
compare two completely different artists,
yeah,
and we still put all of them under the same umbrella of rock.
yeah,
And then that's why, like, we sometimes struggle to actually describe what rock music is. How
yeah.
can Fats Domino and Muse be in the same?
I think we said it well in episode 1 where we said rock and roll is musical freedom.
Yeah,
And I love that we caught that because we didn't even rehearse that. That was a test.
yeah,
For all those who don't know, episode 1 was a test. We just thought, should we just give it a go? We can analyze it after. We can look through the episode, see what worked, what didn't, and then re-record it. We
yeah.
did that in one take, and the conversation just flowed so well. And I'm so glad we got that moment in time, bro. I think it was you who said that, who said rock and roll is musical
It's
freedom.
musical freedom.
And
Yeah,
that is the statement that has defined this show, because we have done odd stuff. We've done rock and roll, we've done metal, we've done country, we've done rock. It's
yeah,
so
but
cool.
that's the thing, though, because maybe like pop music in general is more formulaic in a way. It's designed to be um, commercially accepted by people and designed to be a good product. Whilst rock music normally comes from true creativity and people who really want to do something different than whatever everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's proper rock music in a way. But you could say that jazz is full of musical freedom as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say maybe. So if you want to be more specific, rock and roll is musical freedom, but not really posh. You know?
Oh my god, brilliant! So we've done 100 albums, we have 100 episodes on rock and roll equals musical freedom, and what we've learned over
But can't be posh.
Yeah. But
It's
what we've
posh.
learned over those 100 episodes, we're now going to alter that to rock and roll is musical freedom, but not posh. So I love it. I love it. That's going to be the new banner for the next 100 episodes. That'll be the new
if
banner.
you need to wear a suit and drink expensive whiskey, that musical freedom's called jazz.
Yeah, very good, very good. My final moment is, and again, I've been quite vague with the last two moments, but live albums. I'm really happy that we've started doing more of them because the only one we did in the first 90 episodes was Peter Frampton. And we did that because if you put it into Google, it turns out it's one of the most best-selling albums of all time.
And his career-defining album.
Yes, exactly.
Really
but I think it's so important because we're plagued nowadays, and I chose that word. We are plagued with miming, backing tracks, auto-tune, these pop stars who will deliver a seamless performance because the people who are watching it and listening don't want to hear anything other than what they listen to on the radio. And so it's seamless. My favorite, I should have done this. I should have associated it with it. But it's a Frank Zappa quote. And he's talking, an interviewer says to him, first she asks him who your favorite guitarists, and then she says, why? And he says, oh, because they do different stuff. And she said, what do you mean? He said, well, I play different solos every night for the same song. And she said, you play different solos? He said, yeah. She goes, well, why'd you do that? And he said, well, imagine playing the same solo every night. And you hear some of these bands, they go out there and the solo they play is just terrific and spotless. But I want to do something different. I want to give the audience an experience that we'll never have again. And I can't remember what she says to respond to that. And she goes, so every night's different. And what does that do for you? And he says, well, can you imagine playing the same thing every night? It's like punching a clock in the face. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
And I just love it, man. And I
think like rock music doesn't need to be right, correct, or perfect. It needs to be good.
Yeah. And so he says, I'm willing to make a mistake so that the audience go home with a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah.
That's what matters. And with that all in mind, live albums so important because Made in Japan, how much for any of those episode 94, Deep Purple, Made in Japan, I was going on and on about the mistakes, and I made clear that I did not mean it in a bad way because mistakes are part of live music because you are doing something that is it's off the cuff, it's impromptu, it's improvised. And my favorite moment in the whole album is when Richie Blackmore is shredding his solo, and when it gets to the next section, the first two notes, they're bum notes. I don't care. I love it. He is there. He is human. He is doing this, and he is giving us an experience that we'll never forget. And in the same way, the James Brown one is almost the opposite of Made in Japan, in the sense that it's so perfect because the musicians he hired are so good that he does not have to worry about the music. The person that gig is all about, James Brown, does not have to worry about the band making a mistake. And I'm not saying that James Brown's band is better than Deep Purple. It's a different kind of music. And James Brown's band, he hired them because they had to be good. There's a famous story about James Brown where you see footage of him from really sort of his early days, and he's turning around, he's singing his songs, and you hear something. And James Brown turns around and he goes like that to one of the band members, and he plays again. Something sounds a little odd. He goes like that, and they say, and
so my tutor, 5 fingers.
No, well, he's going. That is how much the musician got fined for the mistake. So like he's
$5 or $50.
Five probably. $5 would have been a lot back in the 60s. But so you hear a mistake, and James Brown's like, right, $5 fine. So James Brown had to have a tight band so that he could do whatever the hell he wanted because that was his persona. Whereas Deep Purple were an organized band playing hard rock / heavy metal music, but the impromptu, improvised stuff like the solos Just go off, man. Have a good time. Give the audience an energetic performance and try something different. Try not to be perfect for the sake of the audience getting something unique.
Yeah, that's definitely what it is, and I think that was Made in Japan was the album that got me into rock music. It was the first CD I bought back in the day,
Wow.
and listening to it nowadays, it's still really impressive. Again, because of that experience, I think the real live performance, mistakes included, proper improvisation when you don't know where you're going with the song, and I think, yeah, again, I agree with you. That's kind of missing nowadays in music. People expect, even rock bands are doing a lot of this, like using backing tracks and playing. So this song is 3.5 minutes, can't be any longer than that, can't be any slower, can't be any faster. You can't extend the solo. You can't even let the audience sing along with the chorus for one extra time, because it's all pre-programmed to be always the same. And I think I think that's like well, you just mentioned James Brown live at the Apollo, so Made in Japan, Frampton Comes Alive, those albums we covered, they're fine examples of proper live music, and I like it. I'm a really big fan of live albums. I think we should do more of them.
Let's do it. And I'm in complete agreement with you. Just for anyone watching this who hasn't watched any of our episodes, every album we mention, I'm going to just tell you the episode number in case you want to go back and listen. So Frampton Comes Alive was 57, Made in Japan was episode 94, and James Brown Live at the Apollo was episode 92. Cool. So should we go on to our favorite episodes?
Yes.
Okay. Now there's reasons. I've got 5 favorite discoveries, so new bands and new albums that I hadn't heard that I ended up loving, and I got 4 favorite episodes. My first one was episode 29, Thin Lizzy. That was the album, or that was the moment where I listened. We've stopped doing full band episodes, and I think that's right to do, because I don't think it's fair on the bands or the albums that we only have 50 minutes to talk about a band and their career.
Yeah.
And I think it was after this episode I made the decision to say no more bands, because when I was doing my research, I couldn't stop listening to Thin Lizzy. I loved it, and I haven't fallen in love with them. They're not one of my top favorite bands now, but hearing what they did and the diversity in their music, Thin Lizzy are tipped as one of the pioneers of heavy metal music. Now, you wouldn't think that listening to some of their Irish traditional folk songs, but it's more the technicality of what they did, the harmonizing guitars, the thumping bass,
the bass of the songs as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Really, but Thin Lizzy, I just found I got on with so much of their music, and what we normally do is we might find with a band episode, we might do their top 10 songs and just listen to them and get an idea from that. I couldn't do it. I had to go and listen to every album. And do you remember I delayed the recording of that episode by a week because I was like, bro, I need more time with this. I can't do it just on 10 songs. So that was a favorite episode of mine, because it introduced me to Thin Lizzy. So there's one.
What a band.
What about one of yours?
Oh, one of mine. I have a list of 10, man. I mean, I got 10 episodes here. Yeah,
so a few of them. Go for
it. I'll tell you what. I really enjoyed doing Band on the Run.
Oh yeah,
Wings.
Yeah.
Because of the story behind it. I love the album. I love the songs, but the stories behind it. It was really a surprise to read about it. And the album cover might have been my favorite album cover because of the story of Paul McCartney getting all these famous people to be in the album cover with him, and they actually are standing against the wall. They're leaning against the wall because they were really hammered, because they had a really wild party the night before the photo shoot. That was a great story, and plus the story of his band not wanting to work with him just a couple of days before he started recording the album. So it's again one of those great masterpieces that came out of hardship. Yeah. So that was one of my favorites. Yeah. Nice. Do you have another one, or are we going to alternate this?
No, you've got more than I have. So you do one more or something, then I'll do another.
Well, you've mentioned so episode 34, Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, again because of the relationship struggles. I didn't know the band, they were going through those things in their personal lives, and I think it's really impressive how it was turned into beautiful music. instead of anything else. So,
Yeah.
one album that surprised me. I'm going to mention two albums that really surprised me.
Hold on. Can you
Hmm.
keep these for the
Yes.
discoveries?
Okay, cool.
Yeah, keep them for
Cool.
the discoveries, all
All
right?
right.
Yeah, move on to your next
Okay,
favorite
no.
then.
So, another episode. I loved doing Bo Diddley
Yeah.
because he sometimes is overlooked in the history of rock music in general. He's heavily associated with blues, but I think he's like rock and roll through and through.
Yeah.
And
He
that
was
is the transition between blues and rock and roll is really clear when you hear Bo Diddley's music.
absolutely, yeah. Tying that in with my next one,
Yeah.
all rock and roll ones. Fats Domino, episode 79, Jerry Lee Lewis, episode 83, Little Richard, episode 68, Bo Diddley, episode 28, and Chuck Berry, episode 93. I love, do you know who else I've forgotten? Is Elvis, and that is episode 14. All of those ones, just seeing two episodes before Bo Diddley, we did Audio Slave. And Audio Slave, there was. I'm just trying to make this connection here. There's a little bit of bluesiness in Audio Slave, isn't there?
Yeah.
So to talk about an album in 2006 that has bluesy hints and thumping rhythms that could be a result of what Bo Diddley did all the way back in 1956 or something, it humbles me, man. I sit here humbled, thinking, wow, like look at what I'm listening to now because of what these guys, Domino, Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, because of what they did back in the 50s.
Yeah, and it's amazing how that music is still part of rock music. You can hear the connection there, like
yeah.
And again, that freedom was there. Is when they breaking away from the formula of blues and country and doing their own thing. And I think it's impressive how you can still associate modern rock music to the stuff that Elvis was recording and Little Richard was writing back in the day.
Yeah.
So
excellent. Another one, a favorite episode because of what the album means to me, Rainbow Rising. Like Ronnie James Dio is one of my favorite vocalists. Stargazer is one of my all-time favorite songs, probably a top 5 easily. And to have the chance to dissect that with you and just talk about it and enjoy it was really fun for me. And then my final favorite episode in terms of what we enjoyed doing, American Pie, when we did the song.
It's on my list.
Is it? Because I love the song. The song has been with me for decades in terms of being that staple song, one of those songs I was played as a kid and just love the melody and you love the story. And I'm thinking the jester and the king and queen who like all this, I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking like a medieval fantasy going on and there is a jester there, but you learn, well, I can't remember what we said, but the jester's Bob Dylan and the king's Elvis and the queen was Nina Simone or something. And just all the metaphors in there and what he's singing about and how he encapsulated, was it 15 years of American history in that song?
Yeah,
listen, all of this is unconfirmed.
Yeah,
we don't know, but from what analysis has been done, all these metaphors.
He's telling them, American, recent history at the time, basically going back a few years, and he covers a whole decade for sure. But it's really hard to find every single reference. I think it's the deepest song in terms of meaning that we ever talked about. Like, to the point we had to do a whole episode on that one. We wanted to do the album, but we had to separate in 2 episodes. One about the album, and another one just for that song. And that song still impresses me every time I listen to it. I'm like, oh, that's what it means. And and it's I'm glad we've done that one because I didn't know the song that well. I didn't know what the song was all about.
It's just amazing. Anyway, that's my favorite episode done. Do you have any more?
Well, the interview we did with Steve Rosen about Eddie Van Halen, because he was a good friend with him. It was his neighbor as well, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And he gave us the book, which is a brilliant book. Tone Chaser was the name of the book. So
Tone Chaser by Steve Rosen. Yeah, it came out last year or the end of year before or something.
Yeah, and there's something. Yeah, that the thing I liked the most when I asked him a question about the Eddie Van Halen he met for the first time and the one he met for the last time? What's the difference
That
between
was a
that?
great question. I'm
And
just trying to episode 59 for those who are wondering. We
oh yeah, I've
interviewed.
got it here, 59.
There
Yeah.
we go. We interviewed
Uh,
Steve Rosen, who was good friends with Eddie Van Halen and wrote his book Tone Chaser, which came out a year and a half ago. So get stuck
yeah.
into that if you're interested. Carry on.
Yeah. So basically, he said that I think the last conversation was about Eddie Van Halen still talking about trying to find his tone. That's what Tone Chaser, trying to find
Yeah.
his music, trying to improve. And it was like he was talking about his life as a whole and music. Like, well, I'm not there yet. After accomplishing everything, he was
Yeah.
still like, I don't know. There's still things to do. There's
But
still things to discover. There's still like a sound to find or a meaning for your life. And I think getting because his book wasn't about Van Halen's music, it was about the person.
yeah.
Having an insight on how that man lived his life and understanding his personality through the conversations makes you realize that good music comes out of people who are very complex in character, personality, and they always trying something, never happy, never satisfied. So it was really, really interesting moment for me to talk to him about Eddie Van Halen.
And that was a great question. I remember you asking that and thinking, my God, like, and do you know what? I don't want to toot our own trumpets here. It's up to other people to tell us how good or bad we are. But Steve said himself, some of the questions we asked, he'd never been asked before. And do you remember several times he had to take a minute to think, how am I going to answer this? Because again, without tooting our own trumpets, we asked some really good questions and we prepared really well for the episode. So yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, I was really happy with all the work we did on that one, and really happy to interview such an interesting character as well.
Yeah. Any others on your favorite episodes list?
I think, well, I loved Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits because of the story behind Money for Nothing, which that's one of the first CDs I bought as well. I didn't know the story, so listen to the episode. That's episode 12. The story is there. I think it was one of the first episodes that got more than 1,000 downloads, wasn't it? So that was an important one for us. Shall we talk about the discoveries?
I just have one more just for me to say. You understand, anyone who knows me, and I know you know me as well, is that my thing is heavy metal. And I love that I've also been able to get my heavy metal fix on this show. Whether it's been as obvious as Osmosis, episode 96, Power Slave, episode 71, Paranoid, episode 20, Metallica as a band, episode 23, or finding the proto metal stuff, Deep Purple's Machine Head, episode 16, Rainbow Rising, episode 47, Rush, Permanent Waves, episode 65, and then figuring the progressive side of it as well. And that's what I've really enjoyed as well. I got an album here. I picked out my vinyls that I have. So this one was important. Caught in the Crimson King. I had heard this album before, 10 years or so ago, and hearing it in the context of more than just this is prog rock, looking at what it did for heavy music, that was really important. I got this one out because it was the second episode we did, Led Zeppelin 2, Power Slave and Rainbow Rising and my other two. But yeah, more just talking about the fact that hearing what Aqualung did as well. Do you remember that one, Aqualung by Jethro Tull, episode 30? Van Halen one we did, wasn't it?
Is the first album?
Episode 24. Just seeing the pre-metal. Man, I just loved it. I just wanted to say, I just listed those albums because something we've got to say. Actually, do you know what? I'll say it now. We are going to be bringing some new content to the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast, and it's not going to be a podcast. It's going to be exclusively on YouTube. And these are going to be little videos, and I'll explain why. We love what we do here. And we love that each week we get to talk about one album that has shaped or done something significant for the world of music, or just means something to us. But myself, I think I can talk for you as well, Felipe. We love music and we love talking about things that we love. I'm a bass player and I love heavy metal. Felipe's a drummer and he loves blues and prog and stuff. we're going to be bringing you little videos now. We're going to aim to do one each, one from me and one from Felipe a week, that will just be discussing some subjects. So we're not going to give too much away, but we like little debates, this album versus that album, this singer or that singer. What happened if this band carried on after they broke up? Little videos like that will not be long, maybe between 5, 10, 15 minutes, where we're just going to talk to you about our thoughts and opinions on the music, bands, artists, genres that we love. And so, like I said, you might get a little bit more heavy metal from me, you might get a bit more blues from Felipe, you might get a few little bassists from me, and you might get some drummers from Felipe. So look out for that, because from next week on, we're going to be starting to bring in you this. We're going to aim to do 2 a week, one from myself and one from Felipe. So yeah, we're very excited to bring you that. And so in that vein, like I said, I'm happy that I've got 10 albums I can loosely maybe associate with heavy metal in the last 100 episodes. I'm sure we'll add more to that list for sure, but like I said, I'm going to try and get my fix from doing these little videos, and Felipe can get his fix as well. So yeah, look forward to that. That's going to be on YouTube. So if you're listening to the podcast on Apple, Amazon, or Spotify, make sure you head over to YouTube, get stuck in, hit the subscribe button so you can get those little videos as well. Discoveries?
Discoveries, yes.
Go on. Right. I haven't really got them in favorite order, but I suppose I could actually. Yeah. All right. My number 5, Live at the Apollo, James Brown, episode 92. I feel like we've covered that one already, so I'm happy to move on. But it was great live album, and I didn't know. Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. And just hearing James Brown, it's one thing hearing him on an album, but to hear him live delivering what he does best, untouchable.
Yeah. That's a good choice. Well, I have one I need to mention is Fire and Water by Free.
Nice.
Because I wasn't familiar with that music at all, and you have it there.
No.
Okay.
I was getting my number 1 out. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. No, so that was really a surprise, because the album is, for me, basically soul music played by a rock band.
Yes.
Really impressive album.
And the album is what's known about that album is All Right Now. And
it doesn't reflect it's one of the best songs in rock history, but it doesn't reflect what the album is in terms of style.
And I think I said it to be clickbaity, but I actually think All Right Now for me is one of the weaker songs on the album compared to what you hear. Compared to what you hear around it. But yeah,
it's just so different from the rest of the album. I think it's really interesting that they came up with that song at the end of a whole soul music experience.
Agreed. Next, number 4 for me is We're an American Band by Grand Funk Railroad. Episode 55, that was. I just remember listening to it the first time and thinking, this is an American band. As in, like, we got everything. It's a bit soul-y here, a bit R&B there, but overall it's just a good rock album, man. Great musicians, and they sounded like they were having fun playing the songs and recording the songs, and for that reason, that was my number 4 of my discoveries.
Well, I'll have to mention American Pie again, because the episode we did about the song, for sure, it's for all the reasons we already said, so that was a surprise. That was a surprise to me, like all that meaning in one song.
Lovely. Number 3 for me was Dookie by Green Day.
Really?
Yes, it was, because I've heard Green Day before. I was kind of into them a bit when American Idiot came out, and I never bothered. No, that's not true. I'd heard Basket Case, and at the time I listened to Basket Case for the first time, it was fine. Like, it was cool. Enjoyed it. Nice little punk rock song, whatever. But going back and doing Dookie, seeing them, was that their second album or their first? Anyway, seeing them at the start of their career was really nice, just to see an innocent little punk band talking about some actually quite mature themes that, when you looked into the lyrics, drug addiction, stuff like that, it was it was eye-opening and just interesting to hear it. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just enjoyed it. And I hear the music was accessible punk. I think of songs like She, which really, it plays on my musical heartstrings. The chord choices are nice. The melodies are really simple and nice, but yet he's talking about some serious stuff. And I've always liked that blend. So yeah, Dookie, Green Day at number 3 for me.
Right. I'm going to mention Word Gets Around by Stereophonics.
Cool.
So that's episode 77.
Yeah.
Because I knew all their hits and was familiar with a couple of their albums. So that album was a really good surprise. It's very simple in a way, very straightforward. But again, it reflects the lifestyle of those young men in Wales. So it's a reality that I don't understand. For me, it's like it's really interesting. It's like someone telling me the story of their lives, and they have a complete different background and different interesting stories to tell that I would never know if it wasn't through an album like that. So that was a really, really cool surprise.
Oh, nice. Number 2 for me was a surprise. It was episode 66, Who's Next by The Who. I was never anti The Who. I got no reason to dislike them. I just remember hearing a few songs, and when I was in my Beatles, Rolling Stones, Who, Kinks phase, they never did it for me 5-10 years ago, whenever that was. It never clicked for me. But then I listened to the album in full, and I got it. And I was like, this is amazing, because you've got some great rock musicians there behind. Is it Roger Daltrey, the singer? Between Roger Daltrey's really lovely vocals, and he's great. He's so dynamic. You know, his shouts and his screams are high energy, but his soft vocals are so soft and smooth. And yeah, I just remember listening to that, and there were several songs on there that really, really, and they weren't necessarily the hit songs on that album.
No.
They just really resonated, and it was a massive surprise. And since then, I've really enjoyed listening to that album again and again, and checking out the other Who stuff as well.
It's interesting, isn't it? We sometimes become addicted to albums we didn't know before the podcast.
Well, no, yeah. So anyway, what's your number 2?
Just that is actually really difficult to because I didn't put my list in the same way as you. So,
all right.
But I'll give you number 2 and number 1 here. Number 1 after yours. So I'll put Elton John, episode 98, some of the recent
one
ones.
Of the last ones, yeah.
Yeah, because I love his music, but I didn't know the first album. Well, it's not really the first album. It was the second album. Yeah. It's called Elton John, released in 1970. And it's one of the best production, is probably in terms of the production choices and the style and the layers and the choices and everything they put in there is my favorite production of all the albums we covered. You know, the musical choices, the orchestra in pop music and all that stuff. Yeah. And it was recorded around the corner to a place where I lived for a couple of years. So it's just like every time I walk in that area now, I think about this. I think about this moment in time where Elton John was there recording and writing songs and trying to establish himself as a solo artist. And lovely. Phenomenal album. Really surprised me.
Nice. Okay, yeah, and I agree, man. That was a lovely album. And same thing with Elton John, as I said about The Who. I'd heard stuff, and I heard your song on repeat when I was about 10 years ago when I was in school, because they all covered it. It never clicked. But then this album I heard, really good stuff. My number 1, I'm gonna do a build up, maybe anticipation. Drum roll, drummer. Yeah. The thing that I knew this band before, and I knew what the world thought of them, and I knew their place in history was cemented and their legacy established. But what I didn't realize, and you can put it down to one man, but I didn't realize how well crafted the music was, and how the kind of mind and the kind of brain it takes to make music as good as that. And the whole band are responsible for the execution, but one man's vision, writing, talent, orchestration, compositional prowess has turned this into one of my favorite albums of all time. Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys are my number 1. Amazing. I'd heard most of the songs before. I know what they're about. I got it. I knew where this album sat, you know, but what I didn't know is the little unspoken competition they had with the Beatles.
Yeah.
In the sense of Brian Wilson, he wasn't like, oh, those damn Beatles, I got to do something. He was like, Sgt. Pepper is a fucking good album. Now I've got to do something to do that. And it was like really healthy competition in terms of bands trying to healthily one-up each other and say, fuck, he's just done Sgt. Pepper. What the hell am I going to do now until he does Pet Sounds? And it's just like, or maybe it's the other way around. But yeah, I just love that. The idea that you've got these musical geniuses. Maybe Brian Wilson was more of a musical genius than Paul McCartney and John Lennon. Maybe Lennon and McCartney were more about writing a melody that sounded nice, going to this from this chord to that chord because it sounded good. Brian Wilson definitely seemed like he was more into the classical theory aspect of it in terms of some songs like That's Not Me, one of my favorite tracks. The chord changes in that, and the amount of times the key changes as well. The Beatles didn't do that often, but just hearing these two geniuses, you got the Beatles and the Beach Boys doing their thing, so different, so unusual, so talented, but still 60s pop music. And for that reason, it's just elevated my opinion of the Beach Boys. And yeah, Pet Sounds has now become easily a top 20 album of mine now. So yeah, that's my number one.
Nice. Well,
and I discovered it because of this podcast. So that's
see?
why, yeah. Anyway, so, go on, give us your number one.
My number one discovery is not necessarily my favorite album of all the ones we covered, but it's definitely the biggest discovery in a way for me. Purple.
Yeah.
Purple by Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah.
So what were you about to ask?
I was going to ask you, is it that you didn't realize it was good? You didn't realize it was that good, but then you did some research and you found
exactly, because when we do this for the podcast, it's like we got to listen to the songs in detail, take some notes, and like pay attention to what each instrument is doing. It's not like you're listening to it as background music or whatever. You're actually listening and paying a lot of attention to the details. And I think it's the whole, the way it was recorded, the production, the way the musicians are playing the album. And I think there's a lot of hard rock or classic rock in the way they play.
Yeah.
So I'm my favorite band is Led Zeppelin. Everyone knows that. So I love them. And there's a lot of that Led Zeppelin energy in their music without copying any specific riffs from Led Zeppelin. So it's the energy, it's that classic rock vibe. And being considered like a grunge band, doing that sort of stuff in the 90s that really relates to classic rock, I think the album was the biggest surprise for me. I knew the songs, but I couldn't say that I knew the album for real until I listened to it for the episode. So what an album.
Yeah, those two albums, Beach Boys was episode 45 and Stone Temple Pilots was episode 91. So go and check them out. So yeah, been a great journey, man. Loved it. And there's only more to come. So for listeners,
let's do another 100.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. For viewers and listeners, what you can expect from us is the same sort of thing. I think we're in a really good format with doing these albums. What I'd like to do more live albums, as you've said, and I think we need to do more songs. I've forgotten. I've done the schedule at Christmas time. I did the schedule for the start of this year, and I completely forgot that we're doing individual songs. And I think they're great. There is one week in a month where Felipe is flat out busy with all his gigs. So we said, on that week we'll choose my album because it's easier for me. But I say we just do a song because it'll just be easier for both of for you for your schedule. And it's important to talk about songs, man. It's important to talk about one song. And how can we do Led Zepp 4 and not talk about Stairway to Heaven for 30 minutes? Do you know what I mean? So it's going to be important. So we're going to do more live albums, more songs. We haven't actually done a covers versus originals episode in a while. So we guys really hope you've enjoyed the content. And we're going to be bringing you more of the same that you've had in the last 6 months, the same kind of discussion, the same kind of formula with our episodes. I think that's all we have to say. Anything else?
I just want to thank everyone who has been listening, downloading, and commenting, and loving and hating what we do. I don't care, as long as it brings some emotion to you in any way. No, honestly, it's when you told me the first numbers of like downloads and stuff. So, do people really like what we're doing? So that's good. I'm really happy that people are interacting with what we're producing in a way, and it's a real pleasure. Life is busy, and to find the time to be here talking to my really, 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 really good friend Laz. One of the best human beings I met in this life for sure. See, there you go. He paid me £5 to say that.
Can someone clip that and put it as a review?
I'll give Laz 5 stars. To have the opportunity to be here talking to you about the subject we love every week, and to know that people want to listen to this, and that is a real pleasure. And I hope we can bring some new information or encourage people to listen to music as an experience. Stop everything you're doing and have a listen to a good album, start to finish. Just enjoy the experience, because that's what music's all about.
I think this year, well, I say this year, this month, I've had a whole new a revitalization of how I consume music, because bands there's a few metal bands, right? There's a band called Bleed From Within, Architects, Machine Head, and there's another one, Whitechapel. They're very heavy metal bands, these guys. They all have new albums coming out. And I haven't felt excited about new albums coming out in, I'll tell you exactly when it was, bro, pre-university. Because something happened in university. Maybe it's my fault, maybe it's the university's fault, maybe it's education's fault. I don't know. I turned from a music fan into music as a career.
You become a scientist, isn't it, in a way?
There you go. And so instead of enjoying new albums coming out, I'd be analyzing them. And I'd be like, what am I doing? Like, why can't I just enjoy this album? Like, I listened to a song and I'm like, okay, I'm enjoying this riff. And suddenly it goes to a chord that I didn't think worked. And I'm sat there going, oh, you should have gone to that chord instead. And I'm stifling my own enjoyment of the music because some creative person had a different opinion for me. And I thought, that's not right. It's not right. And I haven't sat meditating or gone to therapy to fix this. Something has just happened this year where all those bands I mentioned have put out a single, and I've really enjoyed the first single. And so I've listened to that over and over again. Oh, 2 months later, a new single. I want a third one. And I've been consuming music just like I did before I went to university when I was a kid. Great. And the singles have come out. And then the Architects album dropped this week. And it was brilliant. I'm thrilled with it. And because I gave the singles that time, I'm now like, oh my God, if Architects did that, I like Bleed From Within more. And their 3 singles I like better. What if their album's better than the singles as well? And I'm just getting excited again, which is a really nice feeling for me because, like I said, it has been a long time where I've enjoyed music for what it is. And I think, bro, part of that is us doing this as well. The way that episodes were so formulaic at the start. Again, I was in my Laz analysis mode, trying to figure out, okay, well, I have to tell them that this is the first guitar solo that did this. No. Enjoy it. And I think this is why I say thank you to you. And, this is why I love doing this with you. It's because you take me away from things being so black and white and into just, well, they recorded this album when they were stuck on a hill in New Zealand. How cool's that? I'm like, yeah, well,
that's a good story there. I don't think that never happened, but we need to record an album
just so that New Zealand can say that. Yeah, but yeah, man, it's awesome. To the listeners and viewers on YouTube and on all the podcasts, thank you for your continued support and for joining us. The one thing I'll say, and I'm not saying this in a begging way, get in touch with us. We don't get a lot of emails, and I put the email in the description and the show notes every time. We want to know your thoughts. If you email us, we're going to talk about it. I'd love to put a section at the start of the show.
Email is great, because social media sucks. So no, you can do the social media. I just don't do
it. I'd welcome a 5-minute part at the start of the show where actually I address, Ed from Brighton has actually said that we got it wrong about Jimi Hendrix using this pedal and that pedal. He actually used this one. Thanks for letting us know, Ed. We're here. And as I said, we are not being paid for this. We are not doing this for any other reason than we love the music we talk about. And if you guys love that music as much as we do, get involved. Send us an email. Tell us albums you want us to do. If you think we've done a Beatles album and we'd like this album to do off the back of that, let us know. Get in touch. And the show can be more about what you guys want as well. Give us a song, give us an album, give us feedback, and we can make the show and, sort of mold it more around the content that you guys like. So with that in mind, happy 100 episodes, bro. Congratulations.
Yeah, man, congratulations. Well. Yes. And thanks for everyone for being with us for 100 episodes. That's really remarkable. Wow. What an achievement. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. I will say again, if you're listening to us on Amazon, Spotify, or Apple, do us a massive favor. Come on, we've done 100 episodes. Do us a favor. Scroll down, hit the 5 stars, give us a nice comment, and we're going to be seen by loads more people. We're going to shoot up the music charts. Not the music charts that matter, not the Billboard 100, the podcast music charts. And if you're watching us on YouTube, recommend us to a friend, share any episode you like with someone who likes that band or album, like and subscribe so you stay up to date with all our content. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for being with us once again. Thanks for being with us for 100 episodes. Keep on rocking, everyone, and don't do anything I wouldn't do.
And as usual, I can't believe this, for the 100th time, take care and long live rock and roll.